The invitation arrived 3 weeks ago, slipped under the door of my Williamsburg loft like any other piece of junk mail. Thick cream cardstock, gold foil lettering that cost more to print than most people make in a month. Celebrating Dr. Victor Langford's retirement black tie gala. Sky Villa, Penthouse 88, Manhattan, Saturday, 8 o'clock. I turned it over in my hands for a long time that night, tracing the raised lettering with my thumb, my father's name in gold. My absence from the host line. Classic. I'd bought the entire building 3 years earlier through a Delaware LLC named 88 Sky Holdings. The seller had been desperate, the board had been greedy, and I'd been 29 with a war chest nobody knew existed. The closing took 43 minutes. I remember because I signed the papers in the back of a town car on the way to a closing in Red Hook. Multitasking. Tonight, I stood in the private elevator lobby wearing the same black column dress I'd worn to my mother's funeral 15 years ago. 1999 Alaya. One of the last pieces Azadine ever cut for a private client. It still fit perfectly. Some things do. In my palm was the original brass key fob, the one issued the day the tower topped out. My family had spent years believing it belonged to some rich friend who let their screw-up daughter house it when the real owners were in Gstaad or St. Barth's. Easier to believe I was a perpetual guest than to imagine I might actually own the keys. The elevator opened directly into the foyer of the triplex, and Tristan was already waiting like a nightclub bouncer who'd been told to keep out the riffraff. Jesus Christ, Sophia. The service elevator is around back. Guests use the main one. Claudia materialized beside him in a cloud of Chanel number 5 in contempt, diamonds flashing at her throat. Darling, the caterers are in uniform. You're not. I stepped past them anyway. The marble under my heels was Calicata Viola I'd personally selected from a quarry near Carrara 2 summers ago. I knew every violet vein in it, like the back of my hand. From the terrace, Manhattan glittered below us like someone had knocked over God's jewelry box. 28 of the towers in that view belonged to me, quietly, through a labyrinth of LLCs with names like 420 Madison Holdings and West End Real Estate Partners. The Sky Villa itself, 25,000 square feet across 3 floors, with a 75-foot lap pool, helipad, and a wine cellar that held 14,000 bottles, was the one I'd finished renovating 14 months ago. Tonight, it was supposedly rented by my father for his retirement gala. The invoice they'd paid, wired from his accountant last week, read $1.2 million for one evening. I'd approved the wire myself. Tristan blocked the threshold to the grand salon like he was guarding the gates of Valhalla. Look, we're doing you a favor letting you pick up a shift. Don't embarrass Dad on his big night. I smiled the way you smile at a child who's just told you the moon is made of cheese. How much did the booking agent quote you for the venue, Tris? He sniffed. 1.2. Not that a washed-up med school dropout would understand money like that. Washed up. Dropout. Failure. Their favorite fairy tale. They told everyone I'd flunked out of Columbia Med, that I'd crumbled under the pressure of the Langford name. The truth was simpler. I'd never applied. At 22, I'd looked at the 16 years of residency ahead of me, looked at my father's cold operating theater and colder dinner table, and I'd walked away with nothing but a duffel bag and a hunch that New York City real estate was a better inheritance than their disappointment. Dad's voice boomed from inside the salon. Who's holding up the damn line? He appeared in a midnight blue Tom Ford tuxedo, cheeks flushed with Macallan 25, and the kind of self-satisfaction that only comes from believing you're the smartest person in every room you enter. The smile died the second he saw me. Sophia, honey, the staff entrance is on the loading dock. He never finished the sentence. Marcus, my building manager for 8 years, former Marine, the only person here tonight who'd known the truth from day one, crossed the foyer in a suit the color of deep ocean at night. Good evening, Dr. Langford. Ms. Langford. He turned to me with a small, perfect bow he reserved for moments exactly like this one. Your residence is prepared. Chef Bertrand is waiting for your final approval on the caviar service. And the quartet has the revised Shostakovich you requested this afternoon. The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the ice shifting in someone's glass, 30 feet away. Tristan's champagne flute slipped from his manicured fingers and shattered into 1,000 crystal shards across my Italian marble. I made a mental note to have maintenance polish out the scratches tomorrow. Claudia actually clutched her pearls. South Sea, 14 millimeter, flawless. Bought them for her myself 2 Christmases ago because she wouldn't stop complaining about the ones Dad had given her in 2008. Dad blinked like someone had just hit him in the face with a tax return. Ms. Langford? Marcus's expression didn't change. Sir, your daughter owns the building. She owns the entire Langford Holdings portfolio, 62 properties across Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Miami. 4.1 billion in assets last quarter, give or take. I stepped past them into my own living room. 40-foot ceilings. The Picasso I'd bought at Christie's last May, when Tristan was busy posting Instagram stories from Mykonos. The Baccarat chandeliers I'd had shipped from Paris in crates the size of small cars. The olive trees on the terrace flown in from Provence and planted in Versailles tubs. Every server, bartender, coat check girl, and violinist, people my family had spent the evening treating like furniture, straightened imperceptibly the moment they saw me. Good evening, Miss Sophia. Welcome home, ma'am. Shall I take your coat, Ms. Langford? Claudia found her voice first. It came out somewhere between a squeak and a scream. This is a rental. We paid $1.2 million. You paid my events team, I said, calm as the Hudson at 4 a.m. I thought a surprise would be more poetic. Tristan was turning a shade of red, usually reserved for heart attack patients. You're lying. You dropped out. You're nothing. You live in some roach-infested walk-up in Bushwick with your stupid little house-flipping hobby. I slipped my coat off and handed it to Marcus. Underneath, the Alaya moved like liquid night when I walked. I keep a small loft in Williamsburg. 2 bedrooms. Sometimes I take the L train. Keeps me grounded. Dad looked around the room like he was seeing it for the first time. The 60-foot terrace with the reflecting pool. The Warhol over the fireplace. The soup can one he used to call that ridiculous nonsense. The 22-foot dining table made from a single slab of book-matched walnut I'd sourced in Slovenia. All this, his voice cracked. All this is yours? Every inch, I said, including St. Catherine's Hospital, where you've been chief of surgery for 23 years. Bought the mortgage last year when the board was about to sell to a hedge fund out of Connecticut. Kept your name on the letterhead. You're welcome. The chairman of the hospital board, currently holding a plate of a 5 Wagyu crostini with truffle foam, actually choked. Sophia Langford? He wheezed, dabbing his mouth with a napkin that cost more than most people's rent. The Sophia Langford? We've been trying to get on your calendar for 18 months. I walked to the head of the dining table, my dining table, and set down the small navy velvet box I'd been carrying all night. Happy retirement, Dad. His hands shook so badly he could barely open it. Inside was the original master deed to the entire Sky Villa triplex, already transferred into his name alone. No mortgage, no lien, no co-signers. Clean title. Recorded at the city register yesterday morning. Claudia started crying, ugly, panicked sobs that ran her mascara in black rivers down her cheeks. But Tristan's new surgical practice is in the medical building on East 76th. We just signed a 15-year lease. My building, I said gently. The rent you've been drowning in? Cancelled. For life. Consider it a retirement gift. Tristan made a noise like a tea kettle about to explode. This is impossible. You were supposed to be nothing. I turned to the room. 200 of Manhattan's most powerful surgeons, donors, socialites, and hedge fund titans who'd spent the last decade whispering that Victor Langford's younger daughter was the family embarrassment, the cautionary tale, the one who couldn't hack it. Dinner, I announced, is served. The 1982 Margot has been decanting since noon. The caviar is Osetra from the Caspian. The foie gras is from a farm in the Dordogne that only sells to 3 restaurants in the world. Everything tonight is complimentary. Then I look back at my father, the man who once told me that real doctors don't flip houses, that real Langfords save lives, not renovate kitchens. I didn't come here to gloat, I said quietly, so only the 4 of us could hear. I came to remind you that the daughter you called a failure just paid for your dream retirement with the interest I made last month. The interest, Dad, not the principal. I raised a glass of the 1982 Chateau Margaux from the cellar nobody knew existed beneath this floor. 14,000 bottles, temperature controlled, insured for $42 million. To never needing anyone's approval again. I drank. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sparkled, my city. The skyline I'd been buying, brick by brick, deal by deal, since I was 22 years old, and they all thought I was bartending to pay for night classes. For the first time in 15 years, nobody told me I didn't belong at the table, because I built the table. I commissioned the chairs. I own the building it sits in. I own the city outside the windows. And tonight, for the first time, I finally took my seat at the head of it. The quartet began playing the Shostakovich waltz I'd requested, the one my mother used to hum while she cooked Sunday dinner in our old apartment on West 93rd before cancer took her, before Dad married Claudia 6 months later, before they decided I was the broken one for grieving too loudly. I stood at the top of the 3 steps that led down into the sunken living room, looking out at all of them. My father pale and trembling, Claudia sobbing into a napkin that probably cost $200, Tristan staring at me like I'd grown a second head. And for one perfect, crystalline moment, I let myself feel it all. The rage, the grief, the triumph, the exhaustion of carrying this secret for a decade and a half. Then I smiled, not the polite society smile they taught me at Spence, but the real one. The one that started somewhere behind my ribs and took over my whole face. Dessert, I said to Marcus, is the chocolate souffle with the gold leaf. Make sure Dr. Langford gets the first one. Because tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about finally coming home.